Hi, good afternoon everybody. My name is Sharon Kirkham and I'm the VP of Analytics and Consultancy from Kognitio. And today I'm going to talk to you about how one of our clients, Inmar, moved their complex retail analytics onto Hadoop. So just a brief overview of what I'm going to talk about, and then I'll dive straight in, and some introduction into who Inmar and Kognitio are. So Inmar apply technology and data science to improve outcomes for both consumers and the businesses that serve them, and particularly we're concentrating on the retail sector today. Kognitio is an ultra-fast high concurrency SQL for Hadoop. So what I'm going to talk about is take you through an overview of the existing architecture that Inmar utilise within their organisation, which utilises Kognitio's standalone product, and the motivation for moving this onto their Hadoop cluster. And then I'll discuss how we did it. So, at the start of this process, Inmar acquired a company called Willard Bishop, who'd been a customer of Kognitio for 4 years, and they were utilising Kognitio standalone within a hosted data centre where the system was administered by CACI. This involved Kognitio as a standalone software product where the data was held on disk within tables within the infrastructure. On top of this, there was views and images created and pinned into memory. So Kognitio allows you to take the data that you persist on disk and hold that in memory and within RAM. And the reason for this is that we can utilise these images for fast access to CPU cores in order to be able to produce extremely efficient and super quick SQL queries. Not only in terms of SQL, but also with embedding processing such as R within that SQL remit. So for Inmar, what this actually means is that they took supply and demand details of data from their consumers within the retail sector and utilised that in order to provide integrated shopper opportunities for the end user within their organisations. So in order to facilitate this, they would take they use a complex combination of SQL and embedded R processing within that to satisfy the more complex analytics of what they were doing. So modelling processes such as regression, clustering, etc. within their R. So what was their motivation for moving to the Hadoop cluster? Well, when Willard Bishop was acquired by Inmar, there was an increased demand for analytics over larger data sets within the Inmar infrastructure. And Inmar have had Hadoop in production for 4 years. And it was access to this data of a higher demand from end users that created bottlenecks in terms of delivering the data to the hosted data center. So the solution was to take their Kognitio standalone product and move it into their Hadoop cluster. And in order to do this, is relatively straightforward within Kognitio, because Kognitio is a single piece of software that is fundamentally the same when running on Hadoop and standalone. So what did we have to do in order to change the structure of the work involved in the analytics that Inmar did? Well, it's all about the bottom layer in terms of the data and how it was stored. Originally, this was stored in local disk on standalone, and when we move into the Hadoop structure that you can see here, the data now resides within ORC files. So that's the difference in terms of what was required. What does that mean for what we had to do in order to make this new infrastructure and workflow usable? So I've just put up a small example here in terms of the kind of work that's involved in transitioning from Kognitio standalone to Kognitio on Hadoop. But I should point out at this stage that if you're thinking of trying Kognitio on Hadoop and you have an existing data warehouse of a different type, it would be a similar process. Kognitio is ANSI standard SQL compliant. So on a standalone version, you can see here a really familiar create table statement, just defining a set of fields and a set of data types for some retail data. One slight difference that you might notice is the reference to the word disk, and this just tells Kognitio that this data is resident only on local disk and not held in memory in images. That would be done later. So if you're using a different database technology at this point, then these kinds of statements are the sorts of things that you might be using. Once you've got your data held on local disk tables, you create a series of views off of these that can then be pinned into memory using a create view image statement in Kognitio. And remember, what that means is that we can have a fast access for the data to the CPUs in order to furnish those end clients. So the views are created. Here we've got a really simple example. It's just a select star statement, but of course that could be any SQL statement within that view creation in exactly the same way that you would create a view in any other database system, such as Oracle or SQL Server or Impala or Spark or whatever. So once you have that view and you've pinned the memory image into RAM, then you get the fast performance. So how do we replicate this on a system that's within the Hadoop environment? So the way that Kognitio have built out their infrastructure on Hadoop is to develop what we call external tables. And what this allows you to do is to, rather than point at a table that's just held on local disk, is that we can actually point at targets. In this case, we've got an ORC file target, and then you just specify the path that you want to point this particular table at. So here we've got a retail sale directory, which will contain a number of files that might typically be updated on a daily basis. Or by store, and this table will support all of the files within that one directory. Now once this is declared, then further up the tree, in terms of creating the views and the images, this is actually identical in terms of the structure. So really, to convert from Kognitio or standalone or other databases, it's the need to just change this bottom layer that's relevant, and then from there all of your complex workload up in terms of your views and any analytics that you're running would be identical. So it's actually quite low pain in terms of being able to do this. So if you're interested in hearing more about the kinds of things that Kognitio do with their clients and how we can help you in facilitating super fast, high concurrent SQL on Hadoop, then please come and see us at booth 830 in the exhibitor area. And I'd like to say thanks very much for listening.